Good morning, dear students. Our next topic that is regarding the new frontiers in organic chemistry, that is your module 7. Okay, new frontiers in organic chemistry, and also it has got two parts. The first part is supramolecular chemistry and the second part is green chemistry. Okay, so now we can go through this supramolecular chemistry. Okay, so let us start with atoms and molecules. See here, this atoms, they will be combining together to form molecules with the help of a covalent bonding, isn't it? They are joined together by either by an ionic bond, a covalent bond, or by a coordinate bond, isn't it? So anyway, these atoms are held together to form molecules with the help of a covalent bond. So here in the case of supramolecules, what happens is that these molecules will be combining together, but this combination, the combination of molecules it does not take place by any type of bonding. That means in terms of a chemical bond, there is only molecular association, or we can say that there will be some non-covalent interaction between the molecules. There will be some non-covalent interaction between the molecule, and as a result of this, what happens? These supramolecules are formed. It is not a very big term to study. Supramolecules, that means it is just formed by the supramolecules are just formed by the non-covalent interactions or the molecular associations. Okay, so that is how the supramolecules are formed. See, for example, water molecule H2O. See, water molecule HOH, the geometry of this water molecule, it will be like this. And also the one water molecule, it will be attached with another water molecule through a hydrogen bonding, isn't it? Through a hydrogen bonding. See here, one of the atom is more electronegative. Oxygen is more electronegative than hydrogen. So there will be an association between these two. As a result, what happens? A non-covalent interaction, or here a hydrogen bonding is there, isn't it? A hydrogen bonding is formed, and as a result of this hydrogen bonding we can say it as a non-covalent interaction. Okay, so as a result of this non-covalent interaction, what happens is that the water molecule, one water molecule, it will be associated with another water molecule, and see here two molecules are there, isn't it? So we can say this water molecule as a dimer. That means two water molecules are attached through a hydrogen bonding or through a non-covalent interaction. And thus we can say this dimer, this water molecule, it is a dimer and it will be a super molecule. Okay, this is what this super molecule, the definition for this super molecule. Okay, so just the super molecules are formed by the non-covalent interactions. Or here this dimer, this water molecule as a single entity, that means this dimer is a super molecule. This single entity we can call it as a dimer or it is a super molecule. So here this is the simplest term for a super molecule or simplest example for a super molecule. And also the supramolecular chemistry, it can be broadly divided into two areas. That is, the first area, it is concerning the supermolecules. Okay, the first case, that is the study which is dealing with the supermolecules, and the second it is dealing with the supramolecular assemblies. So two areas are there in supramolecular chemistry. That is the first one regarding supermolecules and the second one regarding supermolecular assemblies. Assemblies means it will be a gathering of supermolecules. Okay, supermolecules itself, it is an association between the molecules. Supramolecular assemblies means it will be again a group of supermolecules. That is what we call it as supermolecular assemblies. Okay. And so now we can, so this is regarding the introduction part of supramolecules, and also the main components of a supermolecule. That also is an important point. The main components of a supermolecule, that is the host. Okay, host, or we can say it as the receptor. The main components, the first one, that is the host, that is receptor and is represented by the letter O, and the second one, that is the guest or the substrate. That is the two main components, the host or the receptor rho and the guest or the substrate, that is sigma. Okay, so these are the two components. So here now we can go through the the PowerPoint presentation of supramolecular chemistry. Yesterday I had submitted the PowerPoint. I had submitted it in your classroom. You can go through the PowerPoints as well. Also note down the points in the PowerPoint. Okay, you can write it in the lecture notes itself. Okay. So this is the main points regarding this supramolecular chemistry. So supramolecules, they are formed by the combination of molecules with the help of a non-covalent interaction. Example, dimer of a water molecule, that is a supermolecule, and two main areas are there, supramolecules and supermolecules and supermolecular assemblies. And the main components of a supermolecule is a host or a receptor denoted by rho and a guest or a substrate denoted by sigma. Okay. And now we can go through this PowerPoint presentation. See here, this supramolecular chemistry, one of the definition, it is chemistry beyond the molecule. That means it is a gathering of molecule, isn't it? So it is the chemistry beyond the molecule. Then it is a chemistry of the molecular assemblies and of the intermolecular bond. Intermolecular bond means we had seen the hydrogen bonding. Hydrogen bonding, it is an intermolecular bonding, that is bonding between two molecules, isn't it? So this intermolecular bond means it is example is a hydrogen bonding, intermolecular hydrogen bonding. Okay, so supramolecular chemistry, it is a chemistry of molecular assemblies or a group of molecules. Then again we can say it is the chemistry of non-covalent bond. While molecular chemistry means it is the chemistry of covalent bonds, supramolecular chemistry means it is the chemistry of non-covalent bond. Okay, these are the three definitions. You have to write down these definitions also in your lecture note. Chemistry beyond the molecule, chemistry of molecular assemblies and intermolecular bond, then chemistry of non-covalent bond. Then molecular chemistry means it is the chemistry of covalent bonds. Then the next one, this supramolecular chemistry, this, can you see it clearly? Supramolecular chemistry means this definition or this topic was put forward by J.M. Lane in 1978, and also he got Nobel Prize in the year 1987, I think. Yes, he got Nobel Prize in the year 1987 for this, and also a group of scientists was there along with him. Donald J. Graham, then Charles J. Pedersen. These three were awarded Nobel Prize in the year 1987 for this study regarding supramolecular chemistry. So he defined this as the chemistry beyond the molecule, organized entities of higher complexity that are resulted from the association of two or more chemical species held together by intermolecular forces. Okay, these chemical species, they are held together by intermolecular forces, and this intermolecular forces means we had seen some of the non-covalent interactions. Non-covalent interactions, they can be electrostatic, then it can be van der Waals forces, it can be then hydrogen bonding, etc. Okay, so that is the definition for supramolecular chemistry, bearing on the chemistry beyond the molecule, bearing on the organized entities of higher complexity that are resulted from the association of two or more chemical species held together by intermolecular forces. Okay. Simply, another definition is also there. Supramolecular systems are the self-organized entities that are resulted from the association of two or more molecules. We had seen the dimer of water molecule, isn't it? So the dimer, two or more molecules held together by intermolecular forces or non-covalent bonds. Okay, that is a definition for supramolecular chemistry. Then again, then the atoms, they combine together with the help of covalent interactions to form molecules, while these molecules through non-covalent interactions they will be forming the supramolecules. Okay. Then the next one, that is the next topic, that is the molecular recognition. See, for molecular recognition, already we had seen this guest and host interactions, isn't it? See, while this molecular recognition means it is the selective binding of a selective binding of a guest as well as a host. Okay, we had seen the guest as well as the host. Guest or the substrate and the host or the receptor molecule. See here, this is the receptor molecule or the host molecule. And see, this is the guest molecule or the substrate molecule. The host molecule, it is denoted by rho, and the guest molecule, it is denoted by sigma. So, by the selective binding of this specific substrate, what happens? A supermolecule is formed. So this is a supramolecule or a supermolecule. So by the selective binding of these two, selective binding of the receptor as well as the substrate, what happens? A supermolecule is formed. So, or it is otherwise called as a guest host complex. So this is a guest host complex. See, this red colored receptor and this green colored substrate, or the red colored host or the green colored guest molecule. See, this guest molecule, it perfectly fits inside this host molecule, so that the supramolecule is formed. Okay. So this two are held together. Both the guest and the host molecule are held together by a non-covalent interaction or non-covalent bond. Thus, a guest host complex or a supramolecule is formed, and the supramolecule we can represent it by sigma rho or rho sigma. Rho represents receptor, sigma represents the guest molecule or the substrate molecule. So this is how a molecular recognition or a supramolecule is formed. Okay, so here it is simply molecular recognition means you have to write the definition also. Molecular recognition, it is the selective binding of the specific substrate, that is a guest molecule, that is represented by sigma, to its receptor molecule, that is host, that is rho, to give a guest host complex or a supermolecule, that is sigma rho. And this guest host complex are held together by non-covalent interaction. Okay. So that is the definition. I will give you just a second for writing the definition. You have to remember this guest as well as the host, or the substrate and the receptor. These two are analogous terms. They can be used. Both these terms can be used. Okay, guest or substrate, host or receptor, sigma and rho. So the formed complex will be rho sigma or sigma rho. That is a supermolecule. Okay. So next is the supramolecular assembly. See here, a supramolecular assembly means, and then you have to write the example also, water dimer. It is a single entity representing a supermolecule. See, supramolecular assembly, it is a polymolecular entity formed by the spontaneous association of a large undefined number of components into a specific phase. See, supramolecular assembly means again the gathering of several dimers. In the case of water, it is a dimer. So the supramolecular assembly means it will be again a dimer. It will be again an assembly or a gathering of the supramolecules. Okay. Here this is the hierarchy of the structural organization of this some of the matter. See, first in the case of atoms, it will be existing as A, B and C. And while these atoms combine together to form molecules with the help of covalent bonds, it will be becoming AA, AB or BC. Through a covalent bond, these atoms combine together to form molecules. Then in the case of supramolecules, what happens is that these molecules, AA, the molecule, it is denoted by molecule A. Two atoms of small letter A combine to form a molecule A. So again, the supramolecular systems means this A will be having a non-covalent interaction between another molecule. A will be having a non-covalent interaction with B. Thus they forms supramolecule. So this is a supramolecule. That is a gathering of this molecules that gives a supramolecule. Then the next supramolecular assemblies means these supramolecules will be joining. This A is a supermolecule, B is a supermolecule, C is also a supermolecule, isn't it? So this A, B and C will be joined together by non-covalent bonds, or there will be some interactions, non-covalent interactions, and they will be forming supramolecular assemblies. Okay, hope you get the topic. So that is how the supramolecules and supramolecular assemblies are formed. So this is supramolecule and this is a supramolecular assembly. Okay. See this, already we have seen this molecular recognition, and this molecular recognition, it is the selective binding of the guest to the host molecule to give a guest host complex or a super molecule. So here this this molecular recognition or this super molecule formation, it is based on the principle of lock and key. Okay, that means Fisher's lock and key principle. See, Fisher's lock and key principle means here two species. See, you can see these two species. Okay, so see, one is a receptor and the other one is a receptor or a host molecule, and the other one is a guest or substrate molecule. Suppose this is a receptor molecule and this is the substrate. This is the substrate molecule or the guest molecule. Okay, receptor or host, substrate or guest. Okay. So here this substrate molecule, it will be perfectly fitting into this receptor molecule. See, this gets fixed to this substrate molecule. Okay, so so here this principle we can say it as a lock and key principle, and also this lock and key principle means they will be having this both receptor as well as the substrate. It will be having a complementary shape, and also it should have a complementary chemistry to perfectly fit. That means just like you can take the example for a lock and key. That means the key will be perfectly fitting into the lock. Normally നിങ്ങൾക്കറിയാം ഒരു ലോക്കും കീയും കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ലോക്കിനകത്ത് പെർഫെക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ആ കീ ഫിറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെയാണ് ഈ ഒരു റിസെപ്റ്റർ ഹോസ്റ്റ് മോളിക്യൂൾ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സൂപ്രാ മോളിക്യൂൾ ഫോം ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സോ ഹിയർ ദിസ് റിസെപ്റ്റർ ആസ് വെൽ ആസ് ദി സബ്സ്ട്രേറ്റ് മോളിക്യൂൾ വിൽ ബി പെർഫെക്റ്റ്ലി ഫിറ്റിംഗ് ഇൻ ടു ഈച്ച് അതർ with the help of some non-covalent interaction. So that is why the principle, it is called as lock and key principle, and for this he got Nobel Prize also. This Emil Fischer had got win Nobel Prize in 1902. Okay, and also see here normally in biological actions, the enzymatic activities, it is based on this lock and key principle. That is, normally there will be an enzyme as well as a substrate molecule, isn't it? That the selectivity of enzyme, it is based on this lock and key principle. That means there should be a complementarity, there should be a steric factor favoring both of them, and also there should be an interactinal complementarity. Interactinal complementarity means there should be a positive or negative binding site, and or there should be a donor as well as acceptor sites. Okay, that means they will be having some opposite charges, just like that. Okay, and also they should be having some steric complementarity. Steric complementarity means either it can be one of them should be concave and the other should be convex. Okay, like that it should complement each other. So that is the lock and key principle. Just it should have complementary shape and chemistry. Then some of the lock and key principle, see some of the terminologies used in lock and key principle. See, sigma is the host molecule, rho is the guest molecule. It gives a guest host complex, that is the sigma rho complex. And some of the analogous terms instead of guest and host, normally we can see in coordination we are using this ligand as well as the metal, isn't it? Their ligand is the host and metal is the guest molecule. Okay, so that they will be perfectly fitting. Similarly, in biological systems we are using two analogous terms, that is the enzyme as well as the substrate molecule. Okay, enzyme and substrate. Similarly, a receptor and a substrate. Similarly, receptor and a drug. So this is in medicinal chemistry, receptor and drug. Okay, this is used in medicinal chemistry, that is for the preparation of several medicines. This particular, that is by computational chemistry, we are using this drug receptor. Then the next one, that is the antibody as well as the antigen. So these are some of the terminologies used in lock and key principle for this guest as well as the host. Okay, so this host plus guest, it will be giving a guest host complex, and also this guest host complex, or we can say it as the receptor substrate assembly, and it should have both steric and electronic complementarity. It should have steric and electronic complementarity. It should have steric and electronic complementarity. Okay, that is the lock and key principle. You just remember the key, lock and key. Okay. So this we had seen. See another guest host chemistry. See, this is the host molecule. This blue color is the host molecule and this green color it is the guest molecule. Okay. So the host molecule represented by rho and the guest molecule represented by sigma. So this guest, it is perfectly fitting into the host molecule. See, it is perfectly fit. See, normally I will be telling you one more example also. Some of the toys of children, that children below 5, they are playing some of the toys that will be like that. Okay. Some of them will be to make some letters or some building blocks. We can say it as a building block. Okay. Just like the building block, you can remember a building block, and this guest host, it is the same. Okay. This guest will be perfectly fitting inside the host molecule. This is another example. See again, this blue is the host and green is the guest. It is also perfectly fitting. Then another example for a guest host complex. This is the host molecule and this is the guest molecule. Perfectly fits inside this, and thus it forms a supra molecule. Rho plus sigma giving rho sigma a super molecule. This is the equation, balanced equation. So there will be an equilibrium maintaining between these two, H plus G and Hg. An equilibrium will be maintained. Then how do you tell which is a host and which is a guest? Host means the binding sites face inward or converge. Host means the binding sites face inward or converge, that is the steric complementarity. And the guest means the binding face outward or diverge. You just remember the convex lens and as well as the concave lens. Okay, converging and the diverging lens. It will be just like that. So this case regards the steric complementarity of that particular guest host molecule. Okay, the binding sites face inward or converge for the host molecule, and for the guest molecule the binding sites face outward. So that represents the steric complementarity of the two molecules. So after this, if the guest as well as the host molecule are like this, or they are maintaining the steric complementarity, what happens? A guest host complex is formed, or a supra molecule is formed. Okay. And also some more factors are there for the efficient molecular recognition, or for the perfect formation of a super molecule. The first one is the steric complementarity. Steric complementarity means the presence of convex and concave domains. Okay, presence of convex and concave domains, that is regarding the steric complementarity. Then the second one, that is the interactinal complementarity. Interactinal complementarity means we have to go through the binding sites, but the binding sites should be positive or negative. It should be oppositely charged like that. And again, it can be a hydrogen bond donor or acceptor. Okay, that means they will be mutually complementing each other. That is what we call as the interactinal complementarity. Just like a positive ion attract a negative ion. That means two oppositely charged binding sites are there. Okay, then that particular guest host molecule can form a super molecule. Then the next one, the presence of large contact area between sigma and rho. There should be a large contact area between the receptor molecule as well as the substrate molecule, or the guest and the host molecule. Then there should be several multiple interaction sites will be there. So many interaction sites should be there for the guest as well as the host molecule. And also there should be a strong overall binding between sigma and rho. There should be a strong non-covalent interaction between the receptor as well as the substrate molecule. Okay, so these are some of the factors which affects the molecular recognition. Steric complementarity, interactinal complementarity, then large contact area, then multiple interaction sites, then strong overall binding between sigma and rho. Okay. So next is the, so this I had already told you, self molecular assembly. These things you don't need. Then the next is you have to go through the types of non-covalent interactions. Types of non-covalent interactions. See, the different types of non-covalent interactions are there for the formation of a guest-host complex or for the formation of a supermolecule. Okay, so the first type, that is the electrostatic interaction. Then second one, that is the van der Waals force. Third one, pi effect, and the fourth one, the hydrophobic forces. Okay, the different types of non-covalent interactions in the case of a supermolecule is the first one, electrostatic interaction. Second one, van der Waals forces. Third one, pi effect. Fourth one, hydrophobic forces. You have to go through all these four in detail. Okay, this is very simple. The non-covalent interaction you had studied in your lower classes also. So the first one, that is the non-covalent interaction. Non-covalent interaction, that is the electrostatic interaction. Okay, electrostatic interaction. So in electrostatic interaction, two types are there. The first one, that is the ionic interaction, and the second one, that is the hydrogen bonded interaction. Okay, so first one we can go through this electrostatic interaction. That is the first category, that is the ionic interaction. So this electrostatic interaction, it is of two types. Electrostatic interaction, it is of two types. First one, that is the ionic interaction, and the second one, that is the hydrogen bonded interaction. Okay, see this in the case of ionic interaction. Normally in the case of sodium chloride, see Na plus and Cl minus will be attracting towards each other. That means they are ionic and oppositely charged species, and they will be attracted together to form NaCl. Okay, so this is an ionic interaction. And also when to this NaCl form, when water is added, what happens? Water is highly polar in nature, isn't it? Water is highly polar. So when water is added to this particular NaCl, what happens? This it will break the interaction between Na plus and break the interaction between Na and Cl. Okay. So this water, or if any highly polar solvents are added to this NaCl, what happens? It will break the interaction between Na and Cl. So that is what is called as ionic interaction. Okay, so ionic interaction means it is the attraction between a positively charged and a negatively charged species. And to this species, if highly polar solvents are added, it will break the interaction. Okay, that is the first category of electrostatic interaction, that is the ionic interaction. Then the second one, that is the hydrogen bonded interaction. See in this you need not study this part. Okay, in hydrogen bonded interaction, you can tell the example as this hydrogen bonding, intermolecular hydrogen bonding. See, this is a intermolecular hydrogen bonding, that is an acetic acid dimer. See, CH3, COOH, again CH3, COOH. Okay, this is an acetic acid dimer. That means two molecules of acetic acid are there. That means it is a supramolecule. Okay, so here this oxygen, it is more electronegative than the hydrogen. So there will be an intermolecular hydrogen bonding formed. So this is an example for a hydrogen bonded. Normally the definition for hydrogen bonding, you know, the attractive force which binds hydrogen of one molecule with a highly electronegative atom. See here, this oxygen, it is a more electronegative atom. It will be bonding with the less electronegative atom, hydrogen bond. Okay, normally this electronegative atom will be fluorine, oxygen or nitrogen, FO or N. Okay, of the same or another molecule. That is the definition for hydrogen bonding. So here then one more example is given. See, in the case of water molecule, see the hydrogen bonding, HOH, it will be having interaction with the next water molecule. So an OH interaction is there. Okay. So this is the case of hydrogen bonding. So hydrogen bond is not a covalent bond. Some of the points, hydrogen bond is not a covalent bond. It is just a non-covalent interaction, or it is just an association between the water molecule. Then it has got a strong non-covalent interaction. That is why it got associated with each other, and also it leads to molecular association. So that is why water, it is in the liquid form, and also it has got a high boiling point. Okay. So this is the first case, that is, so the first non-covalent interaction, that is the electrostatic interaction. It has got two types, ionic interaction as well as the hydrogen bonding. Then the second non-covalent interaction, that is the van der Waals forces. So van der Waals forces, again, they are of three types. The first one, that is the dipole-dipole interaction or the Keystone force. Second one, dipole-induced dipole interaction or the Debye force. And the third one, induced dipole interaction, that is the London dispersive forces. Okay, so dipole-dipole interaction or Keystone force, dipole-induced dipole interaction or Debye force, then induced dipole interaction or the London dispersive forces. Okay, so these are the three types of van der Waals forces. Then you have to go through it one by one. So the first one, see, if I am going fast, you can if you can't write the lecture notes, you just take a pause and then write the lecture notes. Okay, otherwise it will be difficult. So the first one, that is the Keystone force or the dipole-dipole interaction. So normally this dipole-dipole interaction will be occurring in polar molecules with permanent dipoles. See, this is a polar molecule and also it has got a slight positive charge and a slight negative charge. Okay, this color, it is a positive charge, and this orange color, it is a negative charge. Here also another molecule with a slight negative charge and a slight positive charge. So there will be an interaction between the positive pole of one molecule and the negative pole of another molecule, so that there will be a dipole-dipole interaction. So this is molecule A and this is molecule B. Okay, so and in this molecule, two atoms are there with with slight positive charges, isn't it? Slight positive and negative charge. So this is molecule A and molecule B, and this molecule A will be interacting, or this molecule A, we can say it as a dipole. Molecule B, again, it is a dipole. So these two dipoles, it will be interacting to form the Keystone force or the dipole-dipole interaction. Okay, that is the first van der Waals force. Then the second one, that is the dipole-dipole interaction. Another example for this dipole-dipole interaction, that is acetone, CH3 CO CH3. Then second molecule, CH3 CO CH3. See here, this the CH3 CO molecule, that is one oxygen atom, it will be having partial negative charge, and it will be interacting with the partial positive charge of the second molecule. Okay, CH3 CO CH3 CH3 CO CH3. So this oxygen atom in the first molecule, it will be interacting with the slightly positive charge of another molecule, so that a dipole is generated. So both of these molecule will be having it will be a dipole, and these two will be interacting to form a dipole-dipole interaction. So this is another example for the Keystone force or the dipole-dipole interaction. Okay, so interaction of the partially negative oxygen atom with partial negative oxygen atom with partial positive carbon atom in the CO group. Okay, so that is the Keystone force or the dipole-dipole interaction. Then the next one, that is the dipole-induced dipole interaction or the Debye force. Dipole-induced dipole interaction or the Debye force. See here, the polar molecules polarizes a non-polar molecule. Okay, in dipole-induced dipole, a polar molecule polarizes a non-polar molecule which lies in vicinity, or means which lies nearby. Okay, so what happens is that while a polar molecule generates a polarizes a non-polar molecule, there a dipolarity is developed, and as a result, what happens? The induced dipole, it will be interacting with the dipole moment of the first molecule, and therefore the two atoms will be attracted to each other. The atoms with larger atomic radii are more polarizable, and hence they have got greater attraction. So this results in the Debye force or the dipole-induced dipole interaction. So here two molecules are there. The first one will be a polar molecule. Suppose A, let it be a polar molecule, and then B, let it be a non-polar molecule. So this polar molecule, it induces polarity in this non-polar molecule, and as a result a dipole moment will be generated, or this B will be polarized, and as a result both of them will be attracted towards each other. So this force of interaction, that is what is called as a Debye force or the dipole-induced dipole interaction. Okay, that is the second thing. That is one molecule polar and the second one is non-polar molecule. Then the third one, that is the induced dipole interaction, or the London forces, or the dispersive forces. That is the next case, induced dipole interaction. So here in the case of non-polar molecules, see, even in the case of non-polar molecules, two non-polar molecules A and B, see, both of them are non-polar, and even in this case also this polarity may develop. Okay, some slight polarity will be developing. That means while we are considering two atoms, it has got a nucleus and the electrons will be revolving around it, and after a short while, what happens, these molecules, these non-polar molecule, both of these are non-polar molecule, and they will be oscillating in every time, isn't it? The electrons, or the electrons in the non-polar molecule, it will be oscillating, and as a result what happens is that the positive charge may be concentrated in one region and the negative charge in another region. See, the positive charge nucleus, it is concentrated here, and the negative charge, it is concentrated here. Okay, so what happens is that it becomes self-polarized, isn't it? So for that particular moment, it will be polarized, or it will be self-polarized for a moment. So this polarized molecule, what happens, it will be inducing a dipole moment to the next neighboring molecule. So suppose consider this molecule A, or it will be self-polarized due to the oscillation of the electrons, and as a result it will be developing some dipole moment or some polarity, and it will be inducing polarity to the neighboring molecule B. Okay, it will be inducing a dipole moment to the neighboring molecule B, and with anti-parallel orientation, and as a result this London forces or the dispersive forces arise. Okay, so these are the points. Non-polar molecule keep on oscillating with respect to the nucleus. See, non-polar molecules, for example, we can consider oxygen, nitrogen, etc. They are non-polar. Similarly, inert gases, helium, argon, neon, etc. They are also inert. They are inert gases. They are also non-polar molecule. So non-polar molecule keeps on oscillating with respect to the nucleus, and what happens as a result of the oscillation of the electrons, what happens, the positive charges may be concentrated at one region. See, the positive charge, it is concentrated here, and the negative charge, it is concentrated here, so that this side becomes slight positive and this side becomes slight negative, and therefore a non-polar molecule becomes momentarily self-polarized, and it induces dipole moment to the next neighboring molecule also. So this type of attractive force, or this type of interaction, we can call it as the induced dipole interaction, or the London forces, or the dispersive forces. Then the next one, that is the pi effects. Third one, that is the third non-covalent interaction, that is the pi effect. So first one we had go through the first one, that is the electrostatic interaction. Second one, van der Waals forces. Van der Waals force, it is of three types. Then third one, it is the pi effects. See, here in pi effects, what happens is that three types of pi effects are there. So here this pi effects means it is the interaction of the molecules with the pi system of the conjugated molecules. See, this for conjugated molecules, it will be having alternate single and double bonds, isn't it? So in such cases, so in molecules having conjugated bonds, this pi effects are occurring. Okay, normally these pi effects are of three types. The first one, it is the pi-pi interaction. Second one, cation pi and anion pi interaction, and the third one, that is the polar pi interaction. Okay, pi effects are of three types: pi-pi, cation pi and anion pi, then polar pi interaction. So first one, that is the pi-pi interaction. See here, it is the interaction between the pi orbitals of the molecular system. See here, these are two benzene rings, and in this benzene ring, the central part, or the electrons are delocalized inside this benzene ring, isn't it? So there will be an interaction between these two benzene rings. So this type of interaction, it is called as the pi-pi interaction. So this is a sandwich type of interaction. Okay, see, just when one benzene ring, see, if suppose this is the benzene ring, this is another benzene ring, it is just stacked together, or it will be in the form of a sandwich, and in between these two benzene rings there will be the pi electrons. Okay, so the interaction between the pi electrons of the two benzene ring, that leads to the sandwich type interaction. Then the second one, that is the T-shaped interaction, T-shaped or the edge to face interaction. So this is another interaction in the benzene dimer. See, one of them it will be like this, and the other one it will be in this form. Okay. So this is called as the edge to face. One is to through the edge. Through the edge, it will be interacting to the face of another benzene ring. Okay, so it is the edge to face interaction, and the third one, that is the displaced or the slip stacked. Okay, displaced or the slip stacked, and it will be like this, slightly displaced from the first one. So that is the third type of interaction in the pi-pi interaction. So it can be sandwich, T-shaped, or slip stacked or displaced. And also one more thing, you have to take the printouts of the PowerPoint also, okay? Or else you have to draw the diagrams. Then the next one, that is the cation pi and the anion pi interaction. It is a very simple one, that is the cation will be interacting. The cation means a positively charged species will be interacting with a pi system of a molecule. Suppose this is an acetylene molecule, CH, or ethylene molecule, CH2 double bond CH2. See this one double bond is there. So this cation will be interacting with the pi bond of the ethylene molecule. Okay, so that is a cation pi interaction. The interaction of the positive charge on a cation with the electron in a pi system of the molecule. Then the next one, that is the anion pi interaction, just the opposite of cation pi. That means the anion will be interacting with the this pi electron system. So here this anion X minus, it will be interacting with the pi system, pi electron system of that particular molecule, and that is called as the anion pi interaction. Okay. Then the third one, that is the polar pi interaction. So here this polar pi interaction means a polar molecule will be interacting with the pi electron system. See here the pi electron system, that is the benzene ring. Polar molecule here is water molecule. So this water molecule, it will be interacting with the this pi electron system. So interaction of molecules having permanent dipoles with the quadrupole of a pi system. So this is the pi system, this is the polar molecule. So that is the third type of interaction, polar pi. So you had seen three types of pi effects. That is first one, pi-pi interaction. Second one, cation pi and anion pi interaction. And the third one, that is the polar pi interaction. See, for all this you have to go through the textbook. You have to read the textbook as well. These are the points that I had prepared in the PowerPoint. Okay. So you have to read the textbook as well. Then you will be, it will make you much more easier. Okay. In textbook it is given in a very much elaborate form. So after studying this portion, you can read the text as well. Okay. Then the next one, the fourth category, that is the hydrophobic forces. Hydrophobic force, that is the fourth type of electrostatic, fourth type of non-covalent interaction. See, hydrophobic means, the term itself means water fearing, isn't it? Can you tell me an example for a water fearing substance that we are normally seeing? നിങ്ങൾ ഈ ചേമ്പല കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ? ചേമ്പലയിൽ വെള്ളം നിൽക്കാറുണ്ടോ? വെള്ളം തെന്നി പോകാറുണ്ട് അല്ലേ? So that means it is a hydrophobic leaf. That means it is water fearing. ഒരു മിനിമം സർഫസ് ഏരിയയിൽ മാത്രമേ വാട്ടർ അതിനകത്ത് അറ്റാച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നുള്ളൂ, ആ ചേമ്പലയിൽ തട്ടുന്നുള്ളൂ അല്ലേ? It is an example for a hydrophobic leaf. Okay, so that is an example for a hydrophobic force. So this hydrophobic effect, it is the observed tendency of a non-polar substance to aggregate in an aqueous solution and exclude water molecules. So this ഈ ചേമ്പലയിലും വാട്ടർ മോളിക്യൂൾസിനെ അത് എക്സ്ക്ലൂഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്, അതിനകത്തോട്ട് നിൽക്കാനായിട്ട് സമ്മതിക്കുന്നില്ല, വെള്ളം തെന്നിയങ്ങ് പോകുന്നുണ്ട്. See, a droplet of water forms a spherical shape, minimizing contact with hydrophobic leaf. So leads to minimum exposed surface area of non-polar molecules to the polar water molecule. So minimum surface area, expose ചെയ്യുന്നത് minimum surface area of non-polar molecules to the polar water molecule. So that is the hydrophobic force. And the substances with this effect, it is called as a hydrophobe. Okay, substances with such effect, it is called as a hydrophobe. Okay. So that is a hydrophobic leaf, and normally this hydrophobic interactions are stronger than the van der Waals force as well as the hydrophobic forces. Okay, hydrophobic interactions, they are much more stronger than van der Waals force as well as the hydrogen bonds. That is a much stronger bond. Hydrophobes are much stronger bonds than the hydrophobic forces are much stronger than this van der Waals as well as the hydrogen bonds. Okay, so that is a hydrophobic force. And also this hydrophobic interaction, see, this is an example for a hydrophobic interaction. See, this is a hydrophobe and the water molecule, that is the polar molecule, it is attached to the surface of the hydrophobe, but it is not, there will not be any direct contact. Okay, it will be having a minimum surface area contact. See, this is a hydrophobe. Next is the sum of the factors influencing the hydrophobic interactions. So the first one, that is the temperature. With increase of temperature, hydrophobic interaction also increases. That is the first point. Then second point, as the number of carbon atoms of the hydrophobes increases, what happens? The hydrophobic interaction will also be strong. Then the third one, regarding the shape of the hydrophobes, aliphatic compounds will be having a stronger interaction than the aromatic hydrocarbons. Okay, so these are the three factors which affect the hydrophobic interaction. One is the temperature, second one is the number of carbon atoms on hydrophobe, and the third one, that is the shape of the hydrophobes. Okay, so these are the three factors which influence the hydrophobic interaction. So this is regarding the supramolecular chemistry. Hope you understood the topic, and also it is very easy, nothing more to study. You just have to coordinate all the points that you had studied in all your classes till now. That means the van der Waals force, etc. you have studied in your earlier classes itself, isn't it? Hydrogen bonding, etc. So you have to coordinate or associate all these to the non-covalent interactions associated with the super molecules. Okay, thank you.